So hello, my name is Rob and this is Cattle Rabbit Scale Model Studios, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how I've been converting up my Leviathan Sternguard veterans into Darkangels veterans. I really like how this turned out, and it got some really nice comments on social media, and seeing as I've got 4 other ones to do, I thought I'd show you how to do them. You can consider this video a little bit of a kit bashing for beginners. I'm in no means a pro at this, and a lot of the techniques I use are very basic. So if it's something that you want to get into but you're not sure how, do consider sticking around for this video. I'm going to be converting them up one by one, but there is a lot to go through with some really simple methods. As always, I will leave any information in the description box below, and just like and subscribe if you genuinely enjoyed this video or learned something. It really does help me out. So there's a few things that I'm going to need. Obviously, when kit bashing, you're going to need bits. Here I've got a little selection that was given to me by a friend. I don't know where a lot of these bits are from. It's a combination of Deathwing Knights and just general Dark Angels bits over the years that he had accumulated that he gave to me. I keep quite a few of these, and I do tend to keep them separate or as best organised as I can. I do find that helps, especially when you're doing a lot of converting or kit bashing. Having a bit of an idea where your bits are will save you a lot of time, and it's just easier to manage. But the Dark Angels have a lot of good bits throughout the years, lots of kits that you can use. One of my favourites is this. This is the company Veterans kit. Although I'm not so interested in the miniatures, this is rammed full of so many cool bits of iconography and heraldry that you can put on your miniatures just to give them so much flavour. This box is double the price of an upgrade sprue, so in my eyes it's so much worth it because you just get a ton of stuff in there. And obviously tools, we're going to need tools. So a pin drill, once again I've spoken about these loads of times before, really easy. It's got a 1mm drill bit in. A pair of old clippers, I say old, you'll find out why. A knife, hobby knife with a good point on it. Some files, you can buy these really cheap, like jeweler's files and things like that. They come in loads of different sizes and shapes, really helpful. I'm going to be using some Tamiya extra thin cement, a bog standard tube of just dirt cheap super glue. This cost me £1 from my local discount store. Another thing you can have on hand, which might be advisable, is a brush. I use this manky old small layer brush as it's got a good point on it, in case you ever need to mop up with like some super glue that's maybe overspilt or anything like that. Also a cat, but this is purely optional. They just get in the way. So I've got my 4 guys and I've made them exactly how they are. So I thought we'd roll a dice and let's see which one we do first. So number 4, you're coming with me. So this is the heavy gunner guy. I really like this one. In actual fact, out of the sergeant, I think this is probably my second favourite one out of them. And there's a few ideas of what I want to do. But the first thing I like to do is obviously get the miniature assembled, and I like to look at where I can actually go with this. So looking at him, obviously, and these are push fit models as well. So he's meant to be in a particular pose. So I think the difference between a kit bash and a conversion, a kit bash is adding things. A conversion is completely changing something. Here we're going to be doing kit bashes. So what I've done is I've gone and picked out just a couple of bits. I'm always of the ilk that less is more, and sometimes over gilding the lily is a bit too much. So I've got this cool little sword thing on the back of this backpack, and I've got this cool little angel thing, which I think would be really cool as a bit of a almost like a blast shield on the side of the gun. So what I'm going to do is show you how I'm going to remove this bit and transfer it onto something else. It's really not as difficult as you might think, as I want it on the Primaris backpack. Obviously this is a Veterans backpack. I can't just use the Veterans backpack because it's got cables hanging from it and stuff like that, obviously being monopose. But all I do is I put my blade flat against the piece and I wiggle the part, not the blade. That way I'm in no risk of the blade slipping through and cutting into my thumb. So I'm actually wiggling the part. Safety first, kids. Now that's chopped off and we've got a fairly flat kind of surface, it's just a question of getting the part that I want to attach it to, in which case the backpack here, and looking at where I can attach it to. Now it's got these little lug things in the way, which shouldn't be too much of a problem, we just have to remove them. So once again, holding it flat, they come off really easily. Now I've got a complete flat surface to work with. So now I can work out, without anything in the way, my spacings of where I want this part. The only other thing is it'll be easier to attach it if we've got a nice flat surface. So what I'm going to do here, either side of it, I'm just going to file it flat, and I'm actually going to file the bottom of this part flat as well. And for this, all I do is I put the part against the file and I run the part on, so it will always be at the angle that I run it on, as opposed to trying to file it flat. Then it is literally just a question of getting some Tamiya extra thin cement, putting 2 little dollops on, holding it in place, and there we go, we've got one part attached already. This is what Tamiya extra thin cement's really good. In case you didn't know, the reason or the difference between super glue and extra thin is extra thin will actually melt the 2 bits of plastic together, so you get a really good bond, whereas super glue just sits on top of what you are currently working on. As for the blast shield thing, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut these wings off either side, and I'm going to try and mount them on the side of the guns. Now, looking at the gun itself, and I always try and look at the surface area that I'm attaching something to, I've cut them open, and as you can see, or maybe not so much because of how I'm holding that there, there's 2 little rivets in the way that will just need to be cut off, which is really easy to do. You can kind of see them just there. That's just a case of running your hobby knife against them and then using a little bit of, once again, extra thin cement either side of it and attaching the wings. And there we go, that's what I was left with. It's really easy to do. The only thing I will say is leave the extra thin cement overnight to really cure and get a really good bond. Once it's cured, you can put more on it, just round it ever so gently to really strengthen that bond and make like a seamless part. But that's number 1 done. Painting will mask a lot of what isn't Dark Angels enough for some people. I always say painting's 50% of the work. So let's pick our next one. We'll do D3. We'll just pick this guy. This is a standard kind of generic looking fella, but there's still some bits we can do with him. Obviously, the pose I'm not going to bother changing with, and if there are any extra little bits that I can put around his waist, I'll do that later on towards the end. But I think what I am going to do is change his head, and we are going to mount something onto the backpack again, just purely because I think they look quite cool, the veterans anyway. So just having a little bit of something is all you really need, because once again, the painting side of things is going to mask, and you'll see this right at the end as I put it on the spinny thing with the one I painted. So for this guy, I'm going to be using the hooded heads. I did decide that anyone without a special weapon would get a hooded heads, and I would have the correct amount. So once again, the veterans kit, absolutely fantastic for this. In actual fact, it's pretty lucky that the Dark Angels have this kit, because it is an absolute treasure trove of just bits. It comes with Terminator bits, Ravenwing bits, standard Dark Angels bits, and it's got everything you would need to kitbash something, or just add a bit more Dark Angels flavour. The other thing I've got is this little insignia type thing, which I want to put on the top here. We don't need to make too many alterations here, but we do need to file the top of the backpack flat, just purely because we need a flat surface for it to sit on. Obviously the head swap's nice and easy, as you can see here. I don't have to muck about with the hood getting in the way of like the collar that would be on the power armour. It just fits in really snugly. So that's a win I'm going to take. And for this part, once again, all I really need to do. Now there's a few ways you can do this to make the top of it flat. You can either scrape it with your hobby knife, or just run, if you're confident enough, a file along it, just so you've got a flat surface. Personally, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scrape the first couple of layers away to get my file started, and then I'm just going to run a file just between it. As you can see here, you don't need to do too much work, and then it's just a question of putting a little bit of glue on the part and holding it in place. The only thing you will need to do is, it's all well and good gluing it on nice and flat, and you'll see here as I hold it in place for just a few seconds, that's all you need. By the way, that's not frozen, that's how steady my hands are. Is you just need to make sure that it's sitting, I guess, level, parallel, straight across the top. So it looks, so when you're looking at it, it's dead on. That's the only thing to kind of, so do take a bird's eye view of it when you're putting it and attaching it together. And then the head, really, really easy. That's number 2 done. There he is. I've just blue tacked the head on so you can get the idea of the posing. Once again, really, really easy. It could be a Primaris veteran kit. And I think that's one of the things that I like with kit bashing, is making it your own. So next one, number 1. So this is the guy with the fancy weapon. I think a lot of people either really like this miniature or they don't. Personally, I really, really like it. I'm not going to change his head because he's got the cool little eye lens on his intercessor helmet, so I'm going to keep that. But I do want to give him a banner. So this is where I'm going to show you how I pin things. Now, pinning can be really fiddly, but with a little bit of patience, it can be really, really easy as well. Like I said, I'm no pro at kit bashing, and I've only really been doing this since I've been doing my Dark Angels project. So I don't have that much experience. And if I can make it look good, then I'm pretty sure anyone can. What I do is I get my hobby knife, and this is why it needs to have a good point on it, as you saw. And I just twist it onto the part where I want to put my drill. This will act as like a little guiding hole. And then I really gently just make sure the drill's nice and straight. Just go through it. One thing I do is I constantly pull the drill out and just check like this how deep I am inside a bit of plastic. It doesn't need to be a massive hole. And then all I'm going to do is repeat the process on the top of the backpack. So I'm going to make a hole roughly in the middle. And then repeat the process where I add the drill. And once again, I'm just going straight down. What I like to do as well, I do just run my knife over the top to remove any burr, because we don't want anything getting in the hole and clogging it up. Now there's a few things you can use to, I guess, use for pinning, like paper clips and stuff like that. I use paper clips. Some people use styrene rods and stuff like that. However, I find paper clips, especially these thin ones, I actually steal them from my work, are a perfect size for the drill bit I use, which is a 1mm. And that pushes in really, really nice and easily. And then using an old set of clippers, and this is why I do stress they are old, because you can kind of like chip the blades. And mark it, and then holding the end of the paper clip, just cut. Always hold the end of the paper clip, because sometimes it can ping off. And I got to tell you, if that hits someone, it really hurts. It's like metal firing. Then using super glue, all I'm going to do is pick up my pin. I'm going to poke it into the end of the super glue tube, and I'm going to really gently squeeze. All I want is the end of that paper clip covered in super glue. Then all again, I'm just going to pop it in the top of the backpack here. And the only thing I really need to make sure here is that it's directly facing upwards and straight. A lot of backpacks are hollow, so if you do drill right through, it won't act as a guide. You'll need to straighten it yourself. But as you can see there, we've got a nice straight pin, and the super glue will set pretty quickly. Then all I do is I check it, my pin. As you can see, that I always leave a little bit extra. It's always easier to take away than it is to add more. If you cut your pin too short, you're a little bit knackered. But if you cut it too long, you can always trim it down. So I just roughly eyeball it. And once again, just cut off the excess. A bit of super glue on the end of the pin. And then what I do like to do is I just get some extra thin cement, and just on the base where it'll be in contact with the plastic, I just put a little bit, just trying to get as good as bond as I can. Then same again, just push it on, and the only thing you really need to be concerned with is it actually straight on the backpack? Meaning, are the arms level with the tops of the little ball things on either side of it? And that's it. That's all I'm going to do for this guy. With a lot of these, I will go back and add some bits around their belts and stuff like that, but I'll do that at the end. And then lastly, we've got this guy, which is just a standard gunner guy. Once again, I'm not going to do too much to this guy because there's not a lot I can do without starting to chop arms up and stuff like that, or swapping arms out, which you could do. You'll only have to remove the pin and then find the, you know, the appropriate arms. But all I'm going to do, I'm going to go for a hooded head because he's got a firstborn head, and my rule is if it's a firstborn, it gets a hood, being Dark Angels. Another cool thing that I did realise while I was mucking about with the Veterans kit, if you look at these little things here, I think originally they're supposed to go around like their groins and cover them up. However, if you do just unclip them, they actually fit really, really nicely on the curvature of Space Marine shoulder pads or on backpacks. So you can actually mount it there. So I think this guy's going to have something on the top and something here as well, just to add a little bit of unique flavour to him, as he's pretty basic. It's not his fault. So this one's a really, really easy conversion, and I've actually covered everything already, but this is how he's going to look. So I blue tack the head in place for the minute. The heraldry has just been extra thin cement, and the little cloth parchment thing on his backpack is just extra thinned in place. So that's it. It's really, really easy to do. I'm going to show you now the customized squad on the spinny thing. Have a go at kit bashing. It is really, really easy. And in actual fact, when you look, I've actually only used a couple of parts on each model, and it's completely changed the flavour of it. Once again, kit bashing is 50% of the battle, because the other 50% is painting. And as you can see by the example of the guy that I have painted, he's only got a bit of heraldry on the back and a hooded helmet, and he's, you know, looks really Dark Angels veteranry, when really I've done very little to him. So it just goes to show you, you don't need to completely change models in massive conversions. Just by adding a couple little bits here and there, and maybe your paint scheme, you'll actually end up with something that is really, really flavourful. So look, I can appreciate this was a really, really long video and there was a lot to cover. If I haven't explained myself so well in any part, drop me a message below. And if you are interested in seeing me paint more of these guys up, do head over to my social medias like Instagram, and I'm on Threads now, which I'll be posting lots of pictures on. If you've got any comments, let me know below. If there's any way I could have done anything better, do let me know. Once again, I'm still very much a beginner, but these are beginners tips from a beginner that might help someone else out. So if you can offer any information, it is incredibly appreciated. But that's it from me in this one. I really enjoyed converting stuff. I really like having a model that only I have, and I hope these models have inspired you to kit bash your own units. But that's it from me. God bless. I'll see you all next time, and take care.